for them. And so I got to work on a lot of projects for her, making presentations that she went and presented at conferences while I was there, and looking up bills that she was interested in because she was so busy she really couldn't do a lot of the stuff herself. So that was kind of, a lot of my job was just doing the things that she didn't have time to do. But they were really interesting because they were all oriented to the organization. So looking at bills, doing presentations. A few times I went and actually went to meetings for her at the Sears Tower, which is now like the Olympus Tower, in Chicago, which is an unbelievable building, and it was a really cool experience just being able to go and be like, one of the people, dressed up downtown. And I went actually to SNAP, which is the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, I want to say, and because they basically in Chicago, for them to get funding, it all has to go through a planning agency so that it doesn't get corrupt, basically. So it has to go through a separate agency, and so that's what they do, and they work a lot with this company, and so I went there and did a lot of stuff for her. So it was really cool just doing a lot of kind of random things. And I also worked on a campaign when I wasn't working on just kind of her, whatever she wanted. I worked on a transit campaign that they're trying to launch coming up, which would generate $14 billion for transit expansions in Chicago, because they have one of the biggest transit systems in like the country and in the world, but it's really falling apart by this point. They really don't have the money to maintain it. It costs like $30 million just to not let it decay a year, and they can't even afford anywhere near that. So that's what this campaign would do. It would get the commissioners to support a 1/4-cent sales tax that would then generate $14 million. So it works on that. That was great too.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I worked in Indianapolis with the Marion County Republican Central Committee, which is the county Republican Party. If you didn't know, Indianapolis and Marion County are pretty much synonymous because the city is so big. And the way government works in Indy is you have the mayor, Greg Ballard, and his city county council is his legislative body. And when I arrived, I worked with 3 other interns, and the county is divided up into 25 little districts, and I worked with 6 different city county councilors, and basically my job was to keep their campaigns organized. We tracked their phone banking numbers, their yard signs, their funds raised, both personal and when they had their own fundraisers. And we just kept them on track week to week. I followed the party's goals that they set for them from weeks to months. If you didn't know, the mayoral race this year is going to be really competitive between Democrat Melina Kennedy and Republican Greg Ballard. So I also did work for the mayor because the city county council wants to be elected with the mayor. And most of my job was outreach. I did a lot of phone banking, a lot of neighborhood canvassing. We worked all different sorts of events across the county. We worked a Hispanic festival. We went to a naturalization ceremony, which was really moving. We just did all kinds of events in Indy, and yep, I worked. That's what I did.
My name is Liz, and I interned with Indianapolis Parks and Recreation Department, so it's kind of a good jumping off point. So Indy Parks, before going into this internship, I didn't realize how much the parks does, and they do a lot. Basically, Indy Parks is responsible for every park in Marion County, so that includes a lot of really large parks like Eagle Creek Park and Holiday Park, and then a lot of smaller neighborhood parks. So that kind of provides an interesting dynamic when you're dealing with park managers. I was stationed in City County Building downtown, not in a park departmental office, which was really interesting. And we worked a lot with Mayor Ballard's office because it is an election year. And it was, what I liked most about the Parks Department is I knew when I was going into my internship that I wanted to work in a city government to kind of gain a better understanding of what that's like, but I wanted the most nonpartisan perspective that I could gain. And although the parks, of course, head deputies are appointed by Mayor Ballard and the current mayor, it's a very bipartisan department, just because everyone loves the parks. Melina Kennedy loves the parks, Mayor Ballard loves the parks, and they're a really great meeting point of politicians and elected officials within the communities. So consequently, my internship was a really diverse experience. I did a lot of different things. It was split between part with the public information officer of the Parks Department and part with their marketing and development supervisor. And that was kind of a great balance of my academic interests, which are communication and culture, and then political and civic engagement. So for the PIO, I wrote press releases, I managed like a media hits binder, tracking whenever the parks was referenced. I helped coordinate different volunteer projects. We did one with Indianapolis Power and Light, which is the main electricity company for all Indianapolis. So they had a huge volunteer effort, and we kind of coordinated them within the parks. On the more marketing side, I promoted different concert events. I managed all the social media. I wrote articles for Indy's Child magazine. And lots of other things, I'm sure. Like I said, it was just really diverse. And probably the most unique thing that I gained from my internship was, because it's an election year, I got to really see how politics can really affect the way departments function and collaborate with one another, in terms of the mayor's influence on his departments and how that kind of fluctuates whether it's an election year or not. So that was really valuable for me to see.
I'm Hannah. I interned with the Government Accountability Office in DC, GAO. I actually did it as a part of the IU DC program. If you didn't get a chance to talk to Elizabeth, do it. She'll take care of you. For this semester, I moved out there, and I did it as part of a program, taking classes and then working during the week, Monday through Thursday. And it was just a great experience. My original focus when I went to apply for the program was sustainability, and I ended up working in financial policy, so you can tell how well that. But I would say first thing about getting an internship is to keep an open mind, because it ended up actually being a really great experience. And what GAO does is it's the investigative branch of Congress. We work for Congress doing reports on certain legislation they want to draft. We do reviews of government programs. My specific job was working on a team that reviewed the IRS budget. So my favorite part of the job is saying I got to audit the IRS, which was really fun. So I worked, like I said, I worked on a team of about 4 or 5 people whenever my supervisor was in town, and we basically were budget nerds for the entire semester. I got this 200-page document, the IRS budget. I learned it front to back, and we produced a GAO report on it at the end of the semester. If anybody's heard of a GAO report before, it gets cited a whole lot in a lot of talk shows and everything. It's just really, it's good unbiased research for Congress to use, and it was a really good chance for me to work on a really professional team. They really treated me like an equal while I was there. They gave me a whole lot of responsibility. I ended up being responsible for reviewing and giving a presentation on how the healthcare bill was going to affect the IRS, like how much they would have to spend to work to implement it, how much they would have to spend to create the infrastructure to implement it too. And by the end of the semester, I got to help present the GAO report to the Appropriations Committee for Congress. And it was great. I would say this, the biggest thing to take away from any internship you get is that it's going to be one of the things that will help you decide what you want to do as a career, either what you do want to do or what you don't. I didn't have any idea what public policy was before this internship. Now it's probably going to be a factor into my career later on. So.
Hi, I'm Rahaf. I was interning as well in DC with the American Civil Liberties Union. The ACLU is widely known for working on cases through the litigation and through lobbying major civil liberties issues, anywhere from government wiretapping to prisoner rights. And that was actually my focus this summer, was working with the National Prison Project. And the National Prison Project is known for lobbying, I guess, and working for the prisoners. So they're not necessarily just pro-prisoners, but they make sure that the prisoners have their rights while they're in prison, which is something that society tends to neglect a lot. As soon as somebody's in prison, we just figure everything is going well on their end. So I actually, for this internship, I worked with a non-legal, it was a legal department, and not being a law student, I had to work as a non-legal intern, which focuses a lot on policy initiatives. Since it was located in DC, the building itself, which is owned by the American Civil Civil Liberties Union was a lobbying building. It's called the Washington Legislative Office. And some of the work I did was, one of our fallback tasks was replying to prisoner mail. So prisoners would write into the ACLU National Prison Project requesting some materials, if it's about medical, any information about dental, about abuse and violence, stuff that would occur to them while they're in prison that tends to not be addressed by the prison officials. And so they would appeal to the ACLU and try to get them to help. And actually what's really interesting was even through the prisoner mail that they would get about 200, 300 letters per week. Not many of the ACLU cases are chosen from the prisoner mail. They come from other sources. I thought that was like really interesting. But so the prisoner mail was our fallback task. What we'd have to do is we'd have to read their letters, see what they were requesting, and provide them with the proper ACLU material. So that was one of the major tasks we'd work on when we weren't assigned specific policy work. And my biggest project for this summer was something that the ACLU was working on compiling. I don't know if many of you are familiar with the private prison industry, but it's actually a very up and coming industry.